In preparation for Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales, I decided to review every single Pirates of the Caribbean movie leading up to it, and today I'm reviewing Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl. In case you don't know, Pirates of the Caribbean was originally a ride at Disney World, or Disneyland. I honestly, they're so similar I can't even tell the difference anymore. But yeah, they decided to make a movie out of that, which is kind of risky. Mainly it's because you're making a movie out of a theme park ride. But surprisingly, Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl really succeeded in making not only a really fun pirate movie, but also reaching new grounds for Disney in terms of how dark they could go with live action, because Disney's always done some really dark stuff in their animated movies. I mean, my sister watched Pinocchio, and she said that will probably give kids nightmares for a long time. And watching the donkey scene in Pinocchio, I'm not surprised. But with live action, they've been pretty tame. Like, it's usually just, fun kids comedies that in reality are really kind of dumb and stupid. But Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl really did bring Disney into sort of that darker territory that they did with their animated movies back in the day. And not just in this movie, but in all the other Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like, they do some really sick and twisted shit. And it's awesome. I mean, hell, you see skeleton corpses in this movie. I mean, ugh. And of course, you cannot talk about Pirates of the Caribbean without at least mentioning Johnny Depp's amazing performance as Captain Jack Sparrow. And believe it or not, this was actually pretty risky for the studio because they weren't so sure about Johnny Depp's, drunken style of Captain Jack Sparrow. He's all like, like he slurs with his words and does these weird facial and hand movements. It's just weird. And they weren't really sure of that first, but as they started to watch more of it in the dailies, they started to realize what Depp was going for, and they really liked it. And very surprisingly, this landed Johnny Depp an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. I mean, this is just as much of a shocker when it comes to acting nominations in the Oscars as Sigourney Weaver in Aliens. But for me, this is actually more surprising because this is a Disney pirate movie, and he got nominated for Best Actor in the Academy Awards. I mean, and of course, this has pretty much caused Johnny Depp to sort of do similar things with this kind of acting. Him playing some weird characters that make weird face movements and weird body movements. I mean, a lot of people have gotten sick of that. I haven't. I just still find it very entertaining. And even then, like with a lot of his characters that he does a similar thing with, he still does enough different things to make it somewhat fresh. But still, back to Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. This is one of the most iconic characters of all time. And really that is because of Johnny Depp's performance. I mean, look at this. He's so cool that just look at this entrance. The character's entrance in the movie is so awesome. It just oozes awesome. And now let's talk about Orlando Bloom as Will Turner, or as I like to call him, White Will Smith, because god damn it, Orlando Bloom is so likable in this movie. And why do I call him White Will Smith? Because he's so likable that it's like Will Smith likable. I wonder why he hasn't been cast in a lot of other things. I mean, the only two things that people really know Orlando Bloom from are Pirates of the Caribbean and Lord of the Rings. And that's about it. Keira Knightley is also really good in this movie. I personally prefer her in the future installments of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise because she does a lot more. But in this movie, she's still really good, and she's not the typical damsel in distress. She's still sort of a damsel in distress in this movie, but at least, she's not completely helpless. She still does some stuff. But like I said, her character will grow even more in terms of badassness in the next movies to come. And Jeffrey Rush is really, really good as Captain Barbossa. He really does sound like he looks like a pirate. Basically, he perfectly plays a pirate in this movie. That's all about I can say. And I gotta say, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies have probably at least in my top 3, my favorite musical score in a movie. I mean, I cannot get that theme out of my head. Like I said, it's in my top 3 of my favorite movie scores of all time. It's just so perfect for Pirates of the Caribbean. And I'm really surprised at how this movie really has a huge scale when it comes to practicality. I mean, they do a lot of practical stuff in this movie, like Jack Sparrow swinging on this one thing that's... it's hard to explain. And also actually having real ships sailing into the ocean. I mean, they do this in the other movies as well, but it's just so cool seeing it in this movie. Another thing I like about Curse of the Black Pearl is that it's complicated enough for you to really be invested, but it's also simple enough to where you can still follow it. I also like how in this scene where you see these two pirates fighting, and they keep going into the moonlight and turning into weird skeleton zombie things, then when they come back into the shadows, they're real people again. Like, I don't know how they were doing that, because that must have been so difficult to do. Especially in 2003, I mean, can you imagine that? You have to keep switching out real people with weird CGI zombie things and then back into people again, all in the same shot. That's very impressive. I do have a few gripes with this movie though, and oddly enough, one of them is for the CGI, because when you get up close with the weird skeleton zombie things, the CGI is pretty noticeable. From far away, they look really good, but close up, it's kind of obvious that the CGI is a little bit dated. There's also this one scene where Jack Sparrow and Will Turner are holding this boat underwater so that nobody sees them, but they still have this pocket of air where they can breathe and talk to each other. I'm sorry, but I know this is a fantasy pirate movie, but that's just too impossible for me to grasp. I mean, have you ever tried something like that? Like, have you ever tried, like, getting a big, like getting some sort of Tupperware container or a tub or something, and, just putting it upside, like, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to look for an example I can use. Where do I put... I'm just going to use this bottle as an example. Now, if I had this bottle and, you know, kept the lid on tight and there was a bunch of air in it like it is now, and I tried putting it in the water, I mean, it wouldn't be for this, it wouldn't be impossible. However, it's still difficult to do because as I'm pushing it down, the buoyancy is just trying to push it back up because of the air that's in the bottle. So if it's sort of difficult for me to push down this little bottle that has air in it into water, then I'm sorry, trying to hold a boat down underwater, like a boat that's probably about as long, if not longer than my bed, would be fucking impossible to do. And also there's this one scene where a little boat is crashing into another bigger boat. However, it collapses without even hitting the boat. In fact, it really shouldn't even be collapsing like that, because it looks like something is tearing it down from below. What should really be happening is the huge ship sort of just pushing it to the side. I mean, that's probably what would happen. And even if it did crash down like that, like I said, for one, it looks like something is pulling it from underneath. But even then, there's still a considerable amount of difference between that little boat and that huge ship. So, I mean, I'm sorry, my eyes are just trained to notice that kind of stuff. In the end, I really like Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. It was a really big surprise, seeing as how it was based off of a ride at Disney World or Disneyland. And Johnny Depp gives one of the greatest performances of all time to one of the most iconic characters of all time. So I'm going to give Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, an 8 out of 10. Stay tuned for my next review, which is for, in my opinion, the underrated Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a like, share the video so we can get the channel circulated, and if you want to see more, click this. Savvy?